Well, good morning. We will call the Special Assessment Commission hearing
Linda.
to order here. Thanks for coming.
You got her?
And again, apologize for the late start. Here's the way it works, and that is, this is a very informal process. I know that I think at least all of you have signed in, and so we'll just take you in the order in terms of when people showed up. And the best process, I think, is to come up and have a seat right there so we can hear and see you. It is being videoed. And just for introductions, that's Linda back there. This is Tom. This is Steve. I'm Dan. This is Dan. And this is Doug. Steve and I are on the Special Assessment Commission, so we are the commissioners, and the rest would be city staff. And so I will call SL 16A. So anybody with SL 16A, come on up and have a seat right here. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good, good.
Good. So I believe this is streetlights?
Yep.
Okay.
Last one.
Okay. Go ahead.
I'm just, two street lights were put up on my block, both sides. And it was about, for that address, it was $1,000. And I understand that things need to be improved around this area, but with streets being ripped up and street lights being put in, and my property taxes being for 4 years in a row increased by 10%. I'm wondering, you as a council, your people here, when is this gonna slow down or pace at a better rate than how much money I'm shoveling out in the last 3 to 4 years?
So are you wondering kind of what's the next step? Is there another project coming?
Yeah, I mean, at what rate are we gonna continue to improve all this stuff all at once? I feel like there's the last 3 to 4 years, everything's being improved, and maybe I'm just ignorant, and it's always being improved. But it's been an exceptionally large amount the last 3 to 4 years.
Sure. Maybe, Tom, I can ask if there's something on the docket for that area?
So you are certainly this is certainly in part of a town where many of the streets are original. Much of the infrastructure is original. So it is part of town where we are addressing a number of those issues. So I certainly understand your concern. But because of the age of infrastructure, that's the reason we're getting into areas like that, doing water main replacement, street recon projects. A lot of that infrastructure has just met the end of its useful life, and so it is being addressed.
Okay.
So, Tom, I'm assuming at least that there's really nothing coming up. In other words, once all this is done, you're not going to be heading back there at least for a while.
Where specifically do you live? Maybe I can help address some of your concerns.
11th Avenue in between University Drive and 10th Street, the one-way.
Okay. Yeah, so you are certainly seeing a lot of construction this year with 10th Street going on. Specifically this project was for streetlights for that area. We had addressed a number of areas in town that had no streetlights or were under lit. And that was kind of a direction that we were given by City Commission to address and propose projects in those areas. And so that's what this project was for. But back to your other concern, we have done a lot in this area. We've done 12th Avenue, we've done 10th Street. I don't anticipate University anytime soon. There is a need on 7th Avenue. You would not be in the special assessment district for that project, though.
So on my water bill, there's a $250 light bill that's been on there for a number of years. I'm not sure how many. I was told that was put on there to pay for these assessments
So
or improvements.
that's paid for maintenance.
Okay.
So it ultimately pays the light bill, the electricity bill. And then as there's outages and stuff like that, those types of repairs it pays for.
So that $250 bill per property is going to continue to go on there.
Yes,
And are these LED lights?
yes.
So their electricity is about 90% the usage of the old.
It doesn't equate the same for as a residential home, but it's probably about 20 to 30% of the energy consumption of the old bulbs.
So there's an 80% improvement.
There is, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
With that though too, is that as we replace some of these areas that had none, we were paying, sometimes there were poles out there with Excel headlights. We paid them. And so now we're taking it, and so that, if you're wondering if that fee is gonna change, there is currently a proposal as part of the 2019 budget that the city commission is looking at that does increase that, I believe by, I'm not sure, but I believe it is $1 for a residential property. And part of that is because of projects like this as we grow our inventory of streetlights throughout town.
So we're using a more efficient light bulb, and we're going to get charged $1 more per month.
I understand how that seems counterintuitive, but as the number of streetlights grows as well, there's more there, there's more inventory there, there's more to maintain as well.
I would think that as you go through and expand this through the whole city, your overall cost, once the projects are done, would be reduced in the long term.
Yeah,
Right.
So we can certainly have that conversation outside this too, if you'd like to talk about that more, and I don't want to.
Yep. I understand.
So part of it too is that that fee, the restructuring of that fee is for streetlights and traffic signals. So that's really, the traffic signals were never part of a utility fee, and that is being merged into that, and that's really a driver of the rate increase as well.
Okay, I didn't know about the
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Morning,
Questions?
guys.
Good morning.
I'd like to address the commission here. My concern is, I know we got street lights and all of that, and I have nothing against it. The only thing I'm concerned about is, I'm on a corner or by St. Mary's Church, 6th Avenue, 6th Street, and I'm getting hit by both sides. I don't mind getting hit by one side. When the competition on a fourplex can be on the left side and maybe pay $1,000 and I pay close to $5,000, it's got to stop. Residential, they don't do that to. Commercial, they do it, and multiple family. So you can have a large commercial, large multiple family in the middle of a block, they don't get hit. So anytime anything comes up on, sitting on 7th Avenue and 7th Street, I get hit both ways. Now, I don't see any fairness in that. I don't mind paying lights on one side, but I don't think I should have to pay on both sides when the competition next to me don't have to. And we're out, we're trying to make a living here, and I like fairness, and I don't see any fairness in this. Something's got to stop.
So help me understand, when you say you're going to hit by both sides, is this just for the lights?
Yes. I'm hit almost $5,000.
Okay.
That's totally ridiculous.
Being a commercial or a multiple family lot on a corner, and they put street lights on both sides, they're responsible for both. In this case,
I
if
got
we did,
one light.
if we did 7th Avenue only, then we would have just charged it for 7th Avenue, but it was on the street and the avenue, so he would have gotten hit for both sides.
And I think it should always be the address side, like any commercial sitting in the middle of a lot, get hit once. So if I got a fourplex right next door, he probably gets hit about $1,000. I don't see any fairness of paying almost $5,000. Something's got to be changed.
So what is your address?
616 7th Street North, so it'd be on 7th Avenue and
Okay.
7th Street, right behind St. Mary's Cathedral.
Okay. Gotcha. And so there are others, obviously, that are in this particular area that are also getting charged for the streetlights. True?
There's only-
Okay. And so what about the next door or nearby? Are they getting
Let's take the
charged?
fourplex, I think it'd be 618 or something.
Okay. So right there. Right.
what's the streetlights assessment on that? Okay.
Right.
I mean, if I paid $1,500, I don't mind paying, being anything fairness, but I don't think fairness have hit on one side when we look at fairness. Nobody's out there picking up whiskey bottles from the city. I mean, I'm doing all of that, but I'm getting off track there, but I'm just talking about
Sure.
fairness on my side there. I think street address should not hit the corner when you can have a commercial or similar in the middle and pay so much less. It's
Okay.
not fair.
We'll take a look at this
Yeah.
after the meeting, and we'll communicate kind of what we're thinking to Dan here, and then Dan will give you a jingle in order to let you know what our thoughts are. Now, if you don't like that, then you certainly have the option to appear before the city commission in order to explain kind of your situation, and that would be a place that you could get a remedy. But we'll certainly take a look at it based upon the information we have here and make a call and then get back to you. How does that sound?
If you guys got my phone number, call me, and I would certainly, if we got to move to the city commission or something like that, but I think
Yeah.
there has to be fairness. If one pays 15, the other pays 5,000. I mean, what's going to happen if you do something on 7th Avenue and we take this perimeter and you're hitting both sides because you're sitting here? It's not fair.
We'll take a peek
Yeah.
at it.
Okay.
We
Thank
understand.
you.
You
Call
bet.
me, and I'll be
Thank you.
glad to hear from you guys.
You bet.
All right.
Thanks for
Okay.
listening.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you for
Can you
coming.
leave your phone number with me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Sure, go ahead.
I just think this price is insane. $1,500 for 3 streetlights? That's a lot of money. I mean, I lived at this property for near a decade and a half. I've never had a problem.
Thank you.
Now I'm getting hit with a $1,500 bill?
Yeah, and the cost.
And plus I'm paying $250 a month anyway already for streetlights.
But as Tom mentioned, the $250 per month, that's related to maintenance of what is already up there and also some traffic lights. But in looking at the district, it was about a $1.1 million total cost to that area. And, you know, we just basically spread the benefit. And I think probably an average is probably 1,500. Does that sound about right?
Sounds about right.
And so that's, unfortunately, that's a function of the size of the district and the number of streetlights that were put in. But we'll certainly take a peek at it, but in terms of the cost and how the district was set up, that's just the way the numbers kind of came out. I know it might not be very satisfying, but that's how the numbers work. If you want to, you can certainly protest, and as I mentioned to this gentleman, you can appear before the city commission, and that would be, they would have an opportunity to provide any type of remedy that they would think would be appropriate.
How was it determined that this project was going to go forward within your criteria that you base, you know, there's a scorecard or residents within a certain area request that this be done? In this instance, it would be for safety, right?
Yeah, so a few years ago, we got direction from City Commission is basically look at our total city and look at areas that don't currently have existing streetlights, and then propose a project in those areas. So this was one of a handful that we've done. We've done probably about 8 in the last couple of years, similar projects to this, and we have a few more areas in town to address yet. This is right on par with what we've seen for typical assessments on those projects. But really it was direction from the City Commission that it is an amenity that they felt is necessary throughout the city, both for aesthetics and safety. And so that is what we did.
Tom, when you say 8, you mean 8 different projects or
Yes.
neighborhoods that have been, so this,
8 different improvement districts that addressed various neighborhoods.
and the numbers that you see here are consistent with the previous 8?
Yes.
There are only a couple of firms in the Fargo area that do this type of work, so the cost is a little bit higher than what you would
And we
probably
do,
think in a- yeah.
we do certainly get competitive bids on that as well. But,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we got 3 lights on our street, and that's with 9 houses on the block, that's 10 grand.
Yeah, so again, what we do, again, we're not looking at pairing a streetlight to a certain number of houses or anything like that. So there's, just like anything with something an engineer does, there's an equation that looks at what the light is, how it distributes based on the type of light it is, and then what the spacing requirement is to get the amount of light that we need to have. And so that's really what dictates it. And then it's balancing that with the existing infrastructure out there to make sure that there aren't conflicts. So, but then as a whole on this project, I believe how Dan ends up spreading it is that it's a total cost based on the total front footage that we're special assessing again. So there could be streets out there that have 3, and there could be some that have 5, but I believe they ultimately receive the same benefit in the eyes of special assessments, and so then it's special assessed uniformly that way.
And you may have seen the district. It basically extends from 6th Avenue North to 12th Avenue North, so about 6 blocks, and then from Broadway to University, so about 6 blocks. So it's about a 6 by 6 area, and that is the district that the engineering department and the city commission set, and then according to what the engineers thought would be appropriate in terms of placement of those lights within that district. And then it's basically averaged among all of the property owners in the area. So again, if you have some concerns about it or would like to be listed a protester, you certainly have that right. And we will give you, Dan or Linda will give you a letter that says when the city commission will address this particular district, so you can explain some of your concerns at that time. Appreciate you coming in.
All right, thank you.
Let's hold that one.
7154.
7154. And which one is that?
Prairie Farms Park.
Yeah, Prairie Farms Park.
Okay.
Good morning.
Morning.
Prairie Farms Park, that area, is that
I'm
right?
sorry?
Prairie Farms Park?
Right. Yeah, I'm a property owner along 64th Avenue South in Maple Valley.
Okay, it's number 20.
So I received a letter regarding Improvement District 7154, Park District FPD 308 for Prairie Farms on Maple Valley.
Okay,
I guess my first question is, what exactly is that related to?
The
I'm sorry,
Park
could-
District enters into an agreement with the developers to create area or neighborhood parks and put in the necessary amenities to complete that, the equipment for kids, some bike trails, some sidewalks, et cetera. And that's what this encompasses in the Prairie Farms area and the Maple Valley area.
Okay, is the primary cost the new park going in just to the south of 52nd Avenue South? There's a new park being constructed there with playground equipment and a basketball court and whatnot.
That'll be part of it, yes.
Is that the majority of it?
Well,
or-
there's also some parkland in Maple Valley also that they did some bike trail work and some walking trail work.
That's
all-
currently on?
It's already been completed, that part.
Okay. Well, we've got 10 lots, and one of the lots has almost $3,000 just for this assessment. And, you know, when I drive by that park and see the playground equipment, I think, you know, $3,000 buys a pretty nice playground equipment in somebody's backyard. So when I look at all the homes in that area, and just it's tough to see really the cost benefit of where those dollars are going. But I trust that there's dollars that are being well spent. To give you a little bit of background, I guess why I'm here, a year ago, we bought 12 lots and we had them replatted. And the primary driver for that was to redistribute the special assessments. They were all over the board, and it would make it very difficult to market these properties with one having specials of 25,000 and one having 50 or 40 or 60. And so we had it replatted, and I'm going to compliment the special assessment people because they were very good to deal with during that process, because we basically put all these assessments on those lots into one pool and equally distribute them, thinking that largely the assessments were completed on those lots. Shortly after we had that done, in December, there was another assessment that came through for a lift station, which made them unequal, but nothing to, that was real material that would, impact somebody's decision to buy this lot or that lot. But it doesn't seem like there's hardly 60 days that goes by that we don't get 10 letters regarding special assessments. And, we had another one now, again, one lot at almost $3,000. And we're building twin homes, and when we're building these twin homes, one of the first questions that people have when they're serious is, what are the special assessments? And I didn't realize that it was such a main consideration and driver for people in buying property, and it is. And quite frankly, we have options on other lots that we're probably not going to pull the trigger on because we just think the special assessments are a deterrent to people buying property right now. And it's definitely a deterrent to develop property. I mean, you would be a fool to take a warranty deed on some lots in South Fargo, for $1, because you wouldn't want to assume that liability with those special assessments and pay those taxes every year. So it's definitely grinding, coming to a grinding halt in that area, in our area, because of the special assessments. So it's a problem. It is. And I'm sure you've heard that before. I'm sure you're well aware of it. But I'm relatively new to that, so you're hearing it firsthand from somebody that's really naive and stupid, okay?
No, I wouldn't say that. And just a quick follow-up, as you probably know, there is a special assessment task force that has been called by the mayor, and the first meeting was last week, and the next meeting, I think, is tomorrow. And one of the issues that they are tackling is some of what I think the city call it green fields. In other words, kind of new areas of development, and seeing if there are some things that could or should be differently done based upon some of the concerns that you are expressing. And so you're certainly not the first one to have raised those issues, and it's being studied at this point.
Okay.
That won't necessarily fix what we're doing here today, but it certainly is on the radar of the city commission to just address some of the concerns that you and other people have.
Okay. Can you tell me who all has the authority to assess property? I mean, I understand that this one is the Park District. So does the Park District have the authority to assess?
Yes, and we are doing the hearing in that on behalf of the Park District.
Okay, so if the Park District that manages the golf courses, want to, put in another 9 holes or redo the clubhouse, they can assess property owners for that kind of a cost?
They possibly could, yes, but there's the whole protest period, et cetera. They're bound by the same type of rules and regulations we are.
Okay,
In these park districts, because they're neighborhood generated and developer, there are agreements with developers when they enter into the development stages, the early development stages, that they enter into those agreements, what the park's responsibility is, what the developer's responsibility is in that area.
okay, but, so who puts the brakes on the Park District if they get too wild, or where's the check and balances there for them? I mean, they can't just blindly go and build parks wherever they want and assess people without some type of approval process, is that correct?
Yes, and that happens at the beginning of the development.
So it's the developers that approve that,
Yes.
as far as the city being involved?
They're a separate entity from the city.
Right, but does the city have to approve those?
Those park areas?
Yes.
No.
Okay. Can you help me understand the formula for assessing property, single-family versus multifamily?
In this case with the Park District, it's on a square foot basis.
So if you've got an apartment building that sits on 2 acres, or a home that sits on 2 acres, they're going to be assessed the same?
Correct.
Per square foot,
Per square foot, yes.
per size.
But you could have a 64-unit apartment building on one tract and a single-family home on another, and they're going to pay the same?
Correct.
Okay, and then the area of assessment, how is that determined? For example, this park that's just south of 52nd Avenue South is largely in a commercial area. Where we're building is down along 64th Avenue South. And I don't see a lot of people where we're building using that park. I think it's going to be a park that's probably going to be used by people that are pulling off I-29, taking the 52nd Avenue exit, grabbing a Burger King or a McDonald's or what have you, and maybe using that park. I
Yeah.
don't see it, I mean, there's not, right in that immediate area, there's not a lot of single-family or construction going on right now.
This agreement was for the Maple Valley area.
Right.
And they do have some Park District there and some, again, bike trails, et cetera, in Maple Valley, and they do have some in the Prairie Farms Edition. So it's actually 2 parks in a matrix of trails that are all involved in this dollar figure. So it's just not that park up on the north end of Prairie Farms that's being assessed. It's,
Okay.
But to answer your question directly as well, in terms of who establishes the district,
Mhm.
in other words, the area,
Mhm.
that's typically, it starts with the engineering department, so Tom's area, and then the city commission will then approve what the district looks like. And so that's kind of the step 2. Step 1 would be the developer. In other words, the developer has the right to say, this is the way I want it done, this is the deal that I've made with the park district. And then once that happens, then it again goes to engineering and the city commission to establish the district.
Okay.
That make sense?
It doesn't. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I think there's some inherent flaws in the formulas and in how you're assessing. I really do. I mean, to give the Park District the credit card to just assess wherever they want or how they want without those checks and balances. And then the formula, again, if you look at a park and you look at, you know, a 64-unit apartment building that's nearby, those residents probably are the primary users of that park, okay? Versus a single-family residence that might be 3/4 of a mile down the road, that might have a playground equipment in their backyard. So to be assessing one property owner of a single-family home $3,000 and a commercial business that's maybe on a similar size lot, or maybe it's twice the size, I mean, the formulas don't seem logical to me. So I maybe don't understand it quite as clearly or as thoroughly as you do, but I'm trying to understand it and figure it out. And I think, like I said, you're well aware that I think there's a lot of people that have concerns about special assessments getting out of hand in Fargo, and it's unique in our city from a lot of other cities. It shouldn't be a driver, it shouldn't be the main topic of conversation when somebody's looking at buying a property, and it is, and it's halting growth. And I know that you realize that when you're halting growth, you're not getting more homes on the revenue stream, and that's not good for the city, so.
Would you like to be listed as a protester? And that would mean that you simply get a letter and have the option to appear before the Fargo City Commission and express your concerns at that time.
You know, I raised my hand to volunteer to serve on that special assessment committee because I did have some questions on there, but
Okay.
I understand I didn't make the grade, so that's fair. You know, I think most of the input I've given you this morning, you're probably well aware, so it's probably sounding like a broken record, but.
That's okay. And we certainly pass on this information to the City Commission as well. And the task force is plugged into it too.
Oh, yeah.
And so, again, you're not the first, and I doubt you'll be the last unless it's changed.
I understand that there's an assessment coming down the pipe related to 64th Avenue South, and we've kind of got our arms around that. I hope that we have our arms around the rest of it, and there's going to be no more, assessments coming through, because it's getting to a point where it's going to be prohibitive for us to sell property. Okay?
Thank you very much.
You
Appreciate
bet.
it.
Thank you for
Yes.
your time.
You bet.
Thank you.
PR 17A. Number 9. What is that? So which one? What project number?
Well, that'd be
I
number
know.
17.
17?
Yep.
17, got it. Morning.
Morning.
Morning, Commissioners. You'd like to go ahead? It's fine.
Sure. Just questions. We're at 3440 36th Street South. The PR 17A project, got an estimate back in January of 17, just an estimate, I understand, $79,000. And got the actual assessment here a few weeks ago, and it doubled to $159,000. Just wondering why some property owners in the area doubled, some estimates actually decreased.
Actually, the initial estimate was based on the front foot for 36th Street, and we didn't do the whole lot. That was our error. But the original assessment, when this project, at the inception, was, I believe, Butler, correct, over 400,000. So when we switched back to the 13, when the city commission reinstated the 13 policy, there was a huge reduction in those numbers. And in an arterial, we use an arterial band. In this case, south of 32nd Avenue goes halfway to 40th. North goes all the way up to Interstate, which is a natural break. And when we calculated that, we calculated, in your case, at the first initial calculation was at 40 cents a square foot, and we ended up at, because of the construction cost for that, taking the front, the direct frontage and the side, I think we came in at 30 cents a square foot.
And so just to pick up on that a little bit, as you probably have known, there was a transition in terms of city commission, went to the property owners paying more over a couple of years. And before it was 50/50. Well, actually before it was 70/30. City paying 70, property owner paying 30. And then it graduated up to 50/50. And just, I think it was in April or May, city commission rolled that back so that the city now is paying the 70% that it did before, property paying 30. So that's why when Dan says it's back to the 2013 formula, that means the city is paying much more than they used to. So that's why it went from 400 and some odd thousand dollars to 270,000 or ballpark number. But the number that I think you're seeing is a little something different, but that's part of the whole, what was 400, that's now about 270. Is that right? Correct.
Okay.
Does that make sense? I'm not saying you have to agree with it or like it, but does the explanation make sense?
Yeah, I guess so. Why don't you go ahead?
Okay, great. I'm Randy Thorson.
All righty.
JL Beers. I'm having a very happy day today, so I hope all of you are going to enjoy your day as well. My question is on this is that I didn't quite understand your percentages, because I understand this project is a $8.9 million project, and $8.8 million was assessed to property owners. You know, JL Beers on that particular street had concrete there at one time. I don't know how much it widened, but we have 143 feet of actual frontage, and you're charging that out at a rate of $187 a front foot. You know, we've been assessed $37,000 on this. The amount of the infrastructure sales tax, it only covered $100,000 of this entire project. It seems as though I need to ask the question, how large is an assessed area district did you know, and how was that determined?
because it seems like an awful lot of money for 143 frontage feet. I also understand there's we've got a little more depth than perhaps a normal property, but we were also assessed a fee for the depth of our property. And I would say 2/3 of that cost is for the concrete. So again, I guess my question is, it seems like an awful lot of money for 143 feet on a project that certainly is used by a great number of vehicles, homeowners as well as businesses in the area. And so how was that determined? How do you pick and say, this is what the area is going to be?
We have arterial bands established. As I said, on the west side, on the south of 32nd, I believe it's still halfway to 40th, and on the north side, it goes up to Interstate. That's the arterial band for 32nd Avenue. Every parcel in the city of Fargo is affected by one north-south, one east-west arterial.
And your east-west was?
The east-west, depending on the area, 42nd's an arterial, 45th's an arterial, so the band for, say, 45th Street would be halfway to 42nd and halfway to Veterans. For the 45th, I'm sorry, that's north-south. The east-west, in this case, is, again, halfway to 40th Avenue South.
Halfway to what?
40th Avenue South would be the next arterial. So we split it at midway between the two arterials. And in this case, north side, north of 32nd Avenue, goes all the way up to Interstate.
Right. And again, tell me the east-west.
That's the east-west.
You're asking the east-west limits of the assessment district?
Oh, the assessment district.
The actual east-west goes from, I believe
45th
it's,
Street.
well, again, that changed because of the change in policy. The original district was set up for also traffic signals. Under the old policy that was reinstated by the city commission, those were put under the cap instead of being separated out and assessed individually. So that's why the band is different. So it actually goes to Sienna Drive.
Okay, I don't know that drive. Tell me. And I've lived here all my life, so.
It's just to the west, north of your property, on the west side in the Matrix addition. I can't remember the name of that addition to the north. That's where we.
Just to the west.
So I believe it's the second block to the west of 42nd Street
Correct.
is
correct.
Sienna.
Wow.
And
Seems
then-
like a small area of assessment.
And then it started, and then it went to 32nd Street
32nd Street was
East.
on the east boundary.
east boundary.
And so when you do that, just because I'm so simple in my process of thinking, is that you're saying that this is the only area of town that's benefiting by the widening of the bridge, all the concrete, everything that's being done, and assessing $8.8 million to this small area?
Again, each parcel in the city of Fargo is affected by one north-south, one east-west. You're paying for 32nd Avenue as your east-west. You're not paying for Main Avenue when we reconstruct Main Avenue, or 13th Avenue, which we did a few years ago, which affected the West Acres area. We use the same type of system, an arterial band system, for that benefiting area, so that you're not constantly getting hit by arterial after arterial, a constant special assessment for arterials.
So, and I would just add that's how the policy is written.
Correct.
Right? So like Dan said, there's an arterial band map. So it shows our city, every arterial that is correlated with an arterial band for every east-west arterial, every north-south arterial. And that's how these districts are set up to start with, that it's basically a predetermined special assessment district so that we're not overlapping when we have those projects being done. So like Dan said, if we, when 40th Avenue was constructed here, this property wasn't special assessed for that. When someday 40th Avenue is reconstructed, your property won't be special assessed for that. So again, it's just one arterial, and that's how we create equity throughout the city as well, utilizing those caps on arterials and those predetermined arterial bands, and that way we don't have that double up. So I understand what you're saying. We hear that comment quite often at meetings, and again, I don't want to throw everything back at the special assessment task force, but that's certainly something they're looking at as well. Should arterials be treated differently? But today, that is the way they are treated, is that you're absolutely right. Everyone probably benefits from that road, but likewise, everyone benefits from 13th Avenue. You yourself and your business might benefit from 13th Avenue, but you're not paying the special assessments when we're reconstructing that roadway this year. And that's how we try to create that uniformity and consistency and fairness throughout the city.
This would have been consistent with when they rebuilt 25th Street and widened out the bridge to 6 lanes.
Correct.
A few years ago, and went all the way up to 17th Avenue and down to 23rd Avenue.
Correct. And likewise, in a couple of years, when we reconstruct 32nd Avenue, going east of 32nd Street, there's a benefit, I believe, to the properties to the west of here, but these properties that are in this special assessment district will not pay for those improvements.
All right. It seems complicated. Now, just tell me about the 70-30%. You know, it seems it's a $8.9 million project, and only $100,000 of it is covered by the infrastructure sales tax. I know we weren't charged for any of the storm sewer, but there was only $100,000 covered by city or infrastructure. What does the 70-30, you know, the 50-50, I don't know what your percentage is.
And I would like to address that if you don't mind.
You bet.
So commonly, through this reverting back to the 2013 policy, that 70-30 split has been talked about a lot. Arterials are capped, and they've always been capped. If the costs exceed what can be generated through the cap cost, then there's city funds brought into it. And if there's not, then it becomes 100% special assessed. Really where the 70-30 or 50-50 comes in when we're talking about local street recon. So if we reconstructed Broadway or First Avenue in front of JL Beers downtown, that's where that policy if we reconstructed that project today under the 2013 policy, what we found is typically on those projects, we're near a 70-30 cost split, but it actually operates on caps. The 70-30 became discussed quite a bit just because it's a little bit easier to try to understand than cap costs and where we typically are on those. So it's not a 70-30 policy, what we reverted back to. I just want to be clear on that as well.
When you say cap cost.
But then it's a cap cost. So, and then part of this project too, one of the things that we're not seeing here is that this total project cost was, I think, nearly a $20 million project.
That's correct.
We had $12 million in federal funds that paid for the interchange portion of the project. None of that was special assessed. So really, when you look at the total project, 60% of the project was not special assessed.
All right, well, it makes me happy, I guess. I didn't get assessed any more than I did, but it just seemed high, guys. I don't normally spend a lot of time on these when we get these notices, because we do have quite a bit of property in Fargo, but this one I had to come in because I just didn't understand. But thank you.
You bet. Thanks, Randy.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Any more questions?
No, understand. Thanks.
Thanks again.
SL 16B,
I'm sorry, Linda, what?
SL 16B.
Excel?
SL 16B. Dale?
16B?
Yep.
Okay, that's number 4.
Streetlights?
I guess I was, oops,
Sure. Good morning.
morning.
Hello.
I guess I was just up at Sanford, so I had some time to waste before I go to work, so I come here. I guess I wasn't expecting this.
That's okay.
Anyway, I got the assessment for this new streetlights. I was wondering, was that 50-50 or 70-30?
So initial install of streetlights is 100%
100%.
special assessed.
Because it's new. It's not a reconstruction or a replacement, something like that. So if it's new, it's assessed at a 100% rate.
Well, they had old ones on the poles.
Those were not owned by the city of Fargo, those were Excel.
Okay. So how much does a streetlight cost?
I don't have that for sure. So, so to construct a streetlight, it's about a 6-foot deep concrete base. Then they directional drill typically a conduit, pull in 3 wires, and then the pole itself, and depending on the height of the pole, the style of pole, and then the style of luminaire, it changes a little bit. But I guess I don't have that exact cost.
Okay, I can add things up real quick. $1,592.60. And if all the lots got the same, there's 5 houses on each side, so that's 10 houses on the block. There's 3 streetlights, then 1 more around the corner by the alley. So divide that by 4. $3,981.50. Is that how much a streetlight costs?
That seems about right, yes.
Thought that was kind of high. Anyway, another thing here too on this, in the paper here. It's got advertising, miscellaneous, engineering, construction cost, interest. $43,612 in interest. Where'd they borrow the money from for that?
That interest that you're seeing on there, when we start construction, the city pays the bill, actually, in essence, loans the money to the project to get those bills paid, because we don't bond till after the project is over. So we're carrying that cost of construction through the construction phase until it's substantially complete. And that is calculated and put back into the cost of the project.
Okay, well, couldn't some owners pay in advance and save the interest?
We special assess, or we spread the cost after the project is complete, that when we have the total number in.
Okay. I was just kind of curious, I had time to kill, so.
Sure,
That's why I come here.
You bet.
Yeah.
Did we answer your questions? You
I-
comfortable?
I think so,
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions?
Okay.
You bet.
Sure.
It's an educational process.
Yeah.
If you want to take the time, our infrastructure policy is on the website.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for coming.
At this point, I don't think there are any additional people that want to speak, so we will call the meeting to a close at 10:50.